is
Welcome to Forever Exiled, a Path of Exile podcast. I am Justin, aka Tags.
and I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
And we are on episode 8 today.
Woo!
Yep. Like I said last time, we passed the death of all podcasts. Well,
We're eternal.
yep. We will last forever now. How you doing?
I'm all right.
Yeah?
I'm all right.
All right. Well, let's just, before we get to you, I'm going to start this on a positive note. We're going to start this off on a positive note and talk about me and my build, because this league so
I thought you wanted to start on a positive note.
yeah, it's going to be the most positive ever. So it has been a slow grind because I'm doing solo self-found. Haven't done it before to this extent, and I haven't had a whole lot of time, but now I've had still not a whole lot of time, but more than before time. But I have gotten way more better. And yes, that's the sentence. I have
almost
gotten
as good as your grammar. Yeah.
way more better. So
Way more.
I found all of the Uber trials and actually got Uber done
Congratulations.
in solo self-found, which I don't think I've ever even done that in a normal league. I think normally I go into general or something and pay a chaos
and you
to
just
go
pay somebody to do
Yep,
it.
just to go run through one just so I can get it done. So all of the Uber, I finished Uber now. I finally have a 5-link that I
Hey.
fused myself and
What?
stopped at 5.
150?
Nope. It took me like 12 because I just did it myself.
My.
And I
wow.
sat there for like a good 30 seconds and was like, no, you idiot, don't keep going, because it did have 6 sockets. So I stopped at that. I was like, no, I'll wait till another one drops. And then I don't know. I'm not sure how I've gotten as lucky as I've gotten, but I have gotten incredible rings and today a belt. So my amulet is still terrible. It really is not great at all. I think I'm using it literally just for int. Like, it just doesn't have any real good stats. But the combination of my rings and the belt that dropped today, let me tell you what I have.
Tell us what you have.
And again, it's not like incredible, but for solo self-found, for me at like 9, I'm not even 90 yet. My resists are all over 115. They're like 120 to 140 each. I have plus 22% chaos resist. Yes, plus 22%. Not minus 60, not minus 20, plus 22%, and around 5,000 HP. And I'm doing the content now. I mean, my damage, I still need some better claws, but I haven't had any problem up into the red tier maps now. I've done, I want to say 9 of the watchstones so far, something like that. But yeah, overall, it's been a huge improvement this week. Uber was a huge boost to damage just for Slayer, and having the 20% insta kill for everything. It makes metamorphs fast. It makes everything faster.
That's insane though.
Yeah.
The 20%. It's so strong. It's so good.
Yeah, it is really strong. So that made a huge benefit. And then just not having to worry about resists anymore, and chaos too, because I didn't really care so much about chaos in the past. We kind of talked about this in a previous episode, just how much resists have changed in the game. And boy, when you get some of those new bosses that randomly spawn mobs as you're working your way up to fighting them, that damage is real. Like, chaos was just wrecking me. It really was. So I've been pretty happy about that.
Good for you.
So that's me. How's your build going, Ty?
Well, let me start off by saying last night I was playing Dark Souls with a buddy, and we've been playing for years. Like, you and I have been playing for years. Ian and I have been playing for years. We absolutely love it. Last night we're going through a lore playthrough, and we're playing a New Game Plus now. And we did number 1 in New Game Plus. Now we're doing number 2 in New Game Plus. We're taking our time. We're reading stuff, and it's a lore playthrough. I've always been a huge lore fan, but he is not. So we're going through it. And now we're going through the DLCs, and I hate the Dark Souls 2 DLCs, but we're going through it. We're going to get every bonfire. We're going to kill every co-op boss. It's going to be great. So we're doing the Fume Night in one of the DLCs for Dark Souls 2, and we were together last night for 2 hours online, over 40 embers, and we couldn't kill them. So let's just say I'm going to be grumpy this whole podcast. We were so bad that I got my son to send Ian some messages. So here we are.
I can't believe you guys didn't defeat the Fume Night. Maybe I should help. Maybe if you guys try hitting harder, do better.
So
That's awesome.
it was worth it that a 5-year-old would send smack talk to two people that are not 5. And so that was a little bit more discouraging. But in terms of POE,
it must be better than that, obviously.
For the first time since I started writing guides, I had to disband a build mid-league.
So what was the build? This is the build you were doing since we started.
And it was the build that I was doing. Now, the reason that I started this build, the build itself is a Scion. It used Deadeye and Inquisitor for its ascendancies, and it was using elemental hits. Now, I spent 2 leagues making sure that this build was good enough to be a guide, right? Now, this is before all these 3.9 changes, and it was. And so I made it into a guide last league, and it did fine. I really enjoyed it. And it taught a lot of neat game mechanics that a lot of my other builds did not. So if you were one of those new players that like to play each of my builds, it was definitely a good tie-in to some unique mechanics that weren't in my other builds. But then when this patch came out, and what I thought, even though it was a big nerf in damage for elemental hit, I assumed, maybe GGG thought so as well, that it was more of a balancing nerf. You know, the players would freak out, but the damage would be fine. So I want to give it a shot, though, because, I mean, Fire lost 205 base top damage. Cold lost 167 base damage. And Lightning lost 337. Like, that's a lot of base damage. Yeah, I mean, you were talking previously, it's one of your favorite things when patch notes just add base damage.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little bit scary. And then when Ballista Totem support came out and its numbers were really low, it made me nervous, but I'm like, there's no way that they actually just made these two completely pointless. So I started playing the guides build just to be sure. And it just wasn't good enough. I mean, the build itself is good, but you need really good gear to make it work really well. And that's not the point of my builds, right? I make guides so that, I mean, the point of the game is like you need good gear to beat good maps and good bosses, but you shouldn't need epic gear to do good content. You know what I mean? You need epic gear to do epic content, good gear to do good content type of thing. And so that's kind of the basis of my guides, where you know, use whatever, in this case, any bow you want. But you shouldn't need a 6 link with epic rolls for crit damage and elemental damage just to start progressing into red maps. So it just wasn't good enough. The damage wasn't there. And in a bow build, for those that aren't familiar with creating their own builds, survivability, if you're actually using some of the ranger ascendancies, survivability is about movement. Like, there's ways to survive, and there's some unique perks for survivability, but you're not a juggernaut. You're not a Templar. Your primary method of surviving as a bow build is movement. And even with that, I needed really high damage to be able to survive content I felt I should have been surviving. So I unfortunately disbanded a guide.
So was it a combination of both survival and damage, or was it one more than the other?
It was definitely damage that was the issue, and as a result, that really impacted my ability to. If I was doing damage that I was doing in 3.8, survivability wasn't an issue. I even added more survivability just with how ballista totems work for this build, but because damage is so low, I needed to be tanky to be able to handle the low damage.
Because fights would take longer, sure.
Way too long, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you saw some of my stuff. I'd be one-handing it. I'd be eating chips. My survivability was fine, but I mean, you should only be able to. I mean, it ended up being quite a long time to map maps and do bosses and metamorphs. So, if they change it, I'll bring it back. I really like the build, but unfortunately, it's done. So yeah, it's been a good league.
So what's your next build? Are you working on, because this was in PC, this was in League.
Yep.
You also play a lot of your builds in Standard in order to keep up your guides and stuff.
Yeah.
So will you be playing any more in the League, or are you going now just strictly to Standard?
If this wasn't the first League with a new Atlas, with new endgame bosses, with new boss resistances, I'd probably just start a second character in League. And see how it leveled, maybe create a new idea to replace the current bow build in case EH doesn't get improved again in 3.10. But because it's brand new everything, I want to take my other 5 builds that are, or other 5 guys that are existing, and I really want to crush high-end endgame content with them just so that I know what it's like, right? Because weapons are a lot more important for your attack based builds now, and I have 2 attack based ones. My Vortex Caustic, or what is it, Chaos Inoculation build, I want to make sure that damage is doing well because I focus strictly on dot damage, self-casting Vortex, dropping it around. So and then of course zombies got changed. I actually haven't had a chance to play with them too much, so I'm going to be playing around with them and seeing how their content is. So far it's been really good. I played with them this week and I'm still quite impressed with them.
Cool. So
thanks for asking.
I think it was just today, right, that the patch notes, was it this morning? The 3.9.2 patch notes were released?
Might have been yesterday.
Was it yesterday? Okay, so they came out, and now I like them because stuff that affected me. You know what? There's not a whole lot that affected me. I like now that you can sell metamorph organs. It's kind of cool to at least get some back. Now, I mentioned to you, I think today actually, I don't know. I love that they fixed that now you can sell 3, get a random reward. In the last like 2 days though, I have felt like the amount of parts that have dropped from end map boss metamorphs where they actually could drop a body part, I have been getting way more of a variance of those. I'm not just loaded up on brains. I'm actually getting and
you used to have an issue, right?
Leading all up until 2 days ago, I had never gone to Tane's laboratory and actually done.
So you're not talking, getting just while you're mapping the in-map ones. You're talking about the unique ones you get that you can do whenever you want.
That's right. Yeah. I've never actually been able to go to his lab because I've been always missing. I want to say it was the lungs or the liver. I can't remember which one it was. I hadn't gotten any. And in the last 2 days, I've done it 4 times. I think I've gone 4 or 5 times, which is a lot for me because I'm not playing a whole lot. But I never had that before. So I went through the notes. I didn't see anything that said anything about, those drops being adjusted or anything. But it is cool to be able to sell 3 to 1 now. Being able to freeze doesn't have any effect on me, but I'm sure for people who are using freeze, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
The rest of it is kind of, go on.
I was just going to ask you to explain the 3 to 1 for people that don't know what it is.
So now you can take any of the organs and sell 3 of any organs, and you'll get a random organ differing from those offered with random rewards.
So it doesn't have to be 3 brains?
It just says 3 of any organs can be given to receive a random organ differing from those offered with random rewards. So I'm curious. My guess is, I haven't tried it, but my assumption is that the new one that you get probably doesn't have any, like, that you can't see it ahead of time. It would be weird if you could see what it's going to roll before you sell it, right? Because then you could, if you put it in there and it's got like 3 currency rolls, okay, great. But if it's got like drops a rare armor, are you going to sell the 3? Probably not. So I assume it's got to be like an unidentified or something. You know how when you get the prophecy to sell 5 uniques, you get the giant like gift. My assumption is I would hope it's something like that so that you can't actually stack them to get exactly what you want.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't tested that part. So anyway, that's the new organ thing, and which I think is great. The rest of the stuff, to me, I haven't gotten to the Awakener fight yet, so I love that. It's funny reading some of this stuff. What it makes me think of is it's actually one of the benefits to playing the way that we typically play. I mean, this is a much slower league for me than normal. Typically, I'm much further along. But one thing I'm enjoying about just chilling is that everybody else can figure out all the crap that's not working, and I can just kind of roll on in and play it in a working condition and be like, what the hell, guys? This is fine. So
yeah, no, I have to agree with you. It's nice. Normally with a league, and I mean their schedules are so tight at GGG. Normally with a league, the stability of the league happens a month after release, even if it's not a Christmas release, right? And you're getting a much more solid package if you start 1 month or 6 weeks later. I have to say, this league, especially as I go through the patch notes, with my hands-on play that I've had already. Again, I also haven't cleared the entire Atlas because of the build that I unfortunately had to disband, but I'm very impressed with how solid this league is.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the fixes are new mechanics for the core game,
right,
not the league game, right? Like how the Atlas works, how the citadels, or what are they called, the altars function, and of course the Awakener fight's been a big topic of discussion for people that have been able to be there. So I'm quite impressed with Metamorph itself, with the body parts themselves. Really, the only issue was a good variety of body parts.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, it's been solid. Like, I can't believe how few issues there are with a boss with randomly user chosen modifiers
for sure
being added to it, and then it's changing to all these different bosses and enemies on a regular basis. It's just, considering the things that have crashed the game in the past and some of the difficulties that leagues have had up to that 1 month mark, this is amazing. What they've done. I'm totally really impressed with them. But then to bring it way back down,
you're going to do this.
3.9.2 is the first major patch after the skeleton crew got back, or after there was no longer a skeleton crew.
So thankfully they fixed everything.
Except standard players still don't have a stash tab that can convert to 3.9 maps yet.
Yeah. Now, and I didn't even see mention of it. Like,
no, it wasn't. It is still on their high priority list, but last time it was on their high priority list, it was about a month and a half until it got fixed. So I was hoping.
You might be only
again,
2 weeks
like,
out.
It's been a solid release, but as a standard player, I don't want to wait 2 more weeks. I mean, I will, of course, and I'll be so happy when it does, and then I'll forget that it was completely delayed. But
maybe you should just drop standard.
I can't, like, with guides, I can't level for builds that fast, within the first week and check things out. I have to play standard.
Do you feel like you need to?
Pardon me?
Sorry, do you feel like you need to be able to play them in a new league in order to determine their viability?
Considering the last, honestly, 4 or 5 leagues, yes.
Yeah,
I do. Because, I mean, they came out with the 3 or 4 master mission leagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Syndicate was crazy. They introduced the value of chaos resist there, right? Delve added a completely new component to the game where you have to be able to do it because there's huge unlocks there.
Sure.
You need to have a build that can do timing-based stuff because Alva, and I hate Alva, but that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really cool crafts that get unlocked that way. What's the other one I'm missing? Einhardt's one of my favorites, but you don't really... I honestly almost never craft via Einhardt, but I still quite like it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's those components you have to be able to implement into your build. And then when they added Blight, I mean, again, not every build will be capable of doing a Blight, especially Blight's the one we just had, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With the pus. Yeah. When it splits, if you do a heavy but small AoE build, and if you get a Blight that splits right off the bat in 2 different directions, it's really hard. It's really hard. So not every build can do it, but I want to know what my build can do with it, right? So
what does standard not have compared to the league?
Right now they just don't have Metamorph.
So how are you able to test on some leagues then? If you're not playing it in the league, how are you able to efficiently test it in standard?
You can't. But it's the same type of assumptions that all guide writers have to make. Like, if guide writers had to test their content for every league, no one would have a guide until at least the first week after the league came out, right?
You don't think you could answer people's questions based on just the knowledge of your guides and the changes? If you started to play one of your characters in a league, wouldn't that give you a pretty good determination of how your other builds were going to do in it?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And so that's part of the assumption aspect, though, and knowledge and experience in playing the game. But I do like to have the hands-on stuff as well. So I always play a league with you, at least one character, just to see what it's like, to see how gear impacts these different elements and the types of builds that are good for it. And then I can continue on the new content, right? So, for example, on my other guides, what did I play last league? Oh, right, zombies, but I barely could because of the frame rate stuff. With I couldn't play Blight with any of the other builds, so I was dependent on what other people were saying. But then I also saw how difficult it was for things to split, that kind of stuff. And it was exciting when Delve finally got added to the core game right after that, because it was neat to take all those characters and finally go delving. So it's neat, but you do have to have some assumption to it. Of course, it's not major assumptions because of the experience in the game, but there it is.
And you don't feel like in standard, I'm actually just curious because I have no interest in standard at all. You don't feel like you're missing out on the league mechanics? Like I could agree with you on some of the leagues because some of the leagues have just been terrible, but like a league like Metamorph has been great. It's been so fun.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're missing out?
No, because I do play League, right? And then I'll play League until I feel like I've had my satisfaction. In this specific one, I still want to play, but for guide reasons, I'm just having to play standard for a bit just to make sure that I know my builds are in good hands. But yeah, no, I get my satisfaction by playing one of the builds in League, and then I go and mess around in it. So it's nice, but it's nice. I actually really like standard because it doesn't revolve around one mechanic, right? It's just a nice balance of 10% this, 10% that, right? You might get this, you might get that. And I like it. There's not an overarching thing that's going to happen every map and exhaust me that I'm going to be skipping. So, but I do really like Metamorph. I'm really excited for that to go core. I mean, assuming it comes to the core game, but how could you not?
Right. Cool. Well, yeah, so that was the patch notes. I thought overall they were good. It's cool that they're fixing some of that stuff. I know that Awakener stuff is going to be a big deal to a lot of people that have been struggling at that with that fight and the mechanics just being buggered up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems a lot more user-friendly. Still hard, but user-friendly. So that's cool. So I like trading, right? When I play, I do like solo cell phone like you're doing, but I really like selling gear that I'm not using. So I don't buy. So that's solo cell phone, all the gear I use, but I like to sell just to have extra currency for mapping and stuff. And so I like to pay attention to some of the trading stuff that pops up on Reddit. And I read one where there was someone who was wanting to buy something and they were just being impatient and they were being really rude. And somehow this person had exactly what they were looking for. That kind of like, how items are named based on the types of mods that are rolled on them.
Yep.
Somehow he had an item that was worded very similarly to the one that this individual wanted. Mm-hmm. And so he sold him that one, and very quickly, and completely ripped him off. Mm-hmm. And did it because the person was being a prick when they were wanting to buy it. And so he totally scammed him. And then instead of just keeping it for himself, he just gave it to somebody that he knew was early. It was like 20 exalts or something. Mm-hmm. And he gave it to somebody that was new so they could spend it on gear type of thing. So it was really nice. And it got me thinking about trade in this game. You know what I mean? And just the attitude that there is between people. And it's interesting. Like when I'm reading through some of my guides, there's trade etiquette that some people bother looking up, maybe because of their experience in another game. Mm-hmm. But I want to encourage people that are listening to have some polite trade etiquette. You know what I mean? Some people are learning the game. They don't know what things are priced at, or sometimes people are trying to scam you, but it's never going to go your way if you're going to be a prick. It's never going to go your way. And even if you do, like, okay, so now you get your gear, but then you were a prick to somebody, mm-hmm. right? Like they might be having a really hard time. Maybe their baby's crying and they're AFK for 2 seconds, or maybe they're having a rough time and their relationship. I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like you never know what people are going through. And sometimes it's just nice to, like a nice thank you or just being polite just encourages people to go in the right direction. And trade, just to me anyway, trade is one of those things in the game where you're actually interacting with someone. And it's just a small opportunity to be kind and polite and to be a light into somebody instead of a prick and bring them down.
I don't think I've had a whole lot of negative experiences. I've obviously had some, but in the case of somebody wanting to buy an item I was selling, if they were nonstop spamming me I would ignore him probably pretty quick, because to me it just wouldn't be worth the currency. I love the fact that, to the extent in this particular case, that the guy, because I don't normally find out about this stuff except through Reddit, because it doesn't tend to happen to me personally to this extreme, right? But I thought this was hilarious, because this guy, the guy that was wanting to buy, was just a tit. Like, he was straight up being a turd the whole time, super rude. The guy told him give him a minute, and he just nonstop spammed him. So the idea that he traded him, I actually like to, because I think I don't remember what he titled it, but he literally said, like, I purposefully scammed. And like, he was unabashed about it. Like, he was just like, yes, I screwed this idiot over because he wouldn't stop being a jerk. And I thought that was hilarious. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you should ever be a jerk in payment, but I still thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really funny how it went about. And I thought it was really nice that he gave it away too.
Yeah. I don't even care if he gave it away, but I just like that hopefully this person on the other side realized, maybe, I mean, he won't. He'll do the exact same thing, I'm sure, next time. Just because that's what happens when you're 12 and you play a game with a bunch of older people. But I thought it was hilarious. It really made me laugh.
Yeah.
Well, on that note too, I think the most annoying thing to me ever when it comes to trading, and this is just absolutely stupid that it bothers me, but if you're buying from me, I hate when you start the trade. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I've played for so long. I'm so used to that. If you're coming to my hideout, I'll initiate the trade.
Yeah, you'll get it when you you'll get it when you get it.
Right, because you came to my hideout with the currency, but I got to get out of a map, get to my stash, grab the item for you. There's all these different reasons.
Check chat, right? Because your
make sure I
macro
grab
might
the
not be
right
working.
item. Yeah, so give me like 2 seconds, and then I will actually hit no to the trade and then open a trade with them. I don't know why. It's just something about it just irritates me.
It bugs me too. I one little thing that gets me is spamming, even if it's just like the copy and paste, or maybe they didn't even realize that they messaged me twice. But if I'm getting messages right away, if I get like 2 or 3 messages, I'll take the next person that asks for it, not the first one. But also because there's type of for bots, and you know how people use their things to try and get items when they're not even searching for them.
Mm-hmm.
I like to, if I get like ding, 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 if I have an item priced to sell and right off the bat I get 6 messages for it, I'll take the 10th person.
I never do that. It's one thing you and I have always differed on, and I've always laughed at. If I price something accidentally too low and all of a sudden I get 10 messages, I am marking it right back up. I'm not gonna let them get it for cheap just because I messed up. Sometimes you don't have time to check.
If it's an accident, that's one thing. But if you're just pricing it to sell because you want the currency right away, I'm not.
Yeah, but if it was the first time you put something up to sell and you just weren't really totally aware, because this game is really, really hard to price certain items. Like, if you don't play this game and are so committed to, let's say, swords, one-handed swords, and you are just into the type of builds, the type of rolls, and you know everything that's going to make that sword valuable, if you're not that person, it's really easy to look at a sword and be like, I could vendor it. And then not knowing that it's actually worth 10 exalts. And then, you throw it up for like 10 chaos just to see, and you start getting bang, 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 bang. No way I would sell that. I'd be like, okay, it's time for me to take a minute and actually look into what I didn't have time to do before and didn't think I needed to. So, but you would have sold it for 10 chaos. Right?
If I really needed the 10 or 11 chaos, yes. But good luck trying to get that 10 exalts on console on standard. That 10 exalt item is going to get vendored. I will have it for sale for 5 chaos for 2 months, and I will hate it because it'll be taking up like 8, like you were saying, maybe a 2-handed sword. It'll be taking up 8 spots on my sell screen or on my sell tab. 2 months later, it's going to get vendored.
The one thing I've noticed is everything that you complain about would be solved if you just threw out the Xbox and pissed on standard. You'd be set. Nope, it's true. Don't think about it. It's true.
I hate restarting and leveling. And
it's so fun.
Well, yeah, but not every time. The amount of time that I get to play, I don't want to do that over and over. And then dealing with stash tabs once everything's turned over, if I don't want to re-level, oh, no way. But anyway, with solo self-found and items, one thing that I'm actually quite impressed with, well, not necessarily impressed with, but I'm happy with, especially for the Soul Self-Found folk, is now that Val areas can roll in maps, which I'm really happy about. It gives people, because the Val areas drop a lot of corrupted items. It gives self-found players an opportunity to get more 5 links than they typically would. Granted, they'd be corrupted, but Val areas have a tendency to drop them more often, and so I think that's pretty cool. I like having the Val areas.
As a solo self-found player, this league, I couldn't disagree more with you.
Why?
So I love the Val areas, and I love them for the sole fact of that exact reason. I have an increased chance of getting a 5 or 6 link item.
Yeah.
I've seen zero.
But you're not very good.
Well, maybe. I've done every single Val area I've come across. I have way too many shards. I don't need them. I don't pick them up, obviously, the gems, but
the Val gems.
Yeah, I don't pick them up. I picked up the very first one I needed. I got Spectral Throw, which was fine. But I haven't seen any 5. I haven't even seen a 5 link. I crafted my 5 link this whole time in Solo Self-Found. I have not had a 5 link drop.
With 12 fusings.
Right, but I had also previously spent probably close to 2,000 jewelers just to get 6 sockets, which has never happened before either. Usually it's like 100 and I get 6 sockets.
Hey, well, I'm glad it's finally hitting you. You remember that league forever ago? This was before the new crafting system happened, where we had Varici that was in charge of basically your sockets and your jewels.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So this was the only league I decided not to care about my master dailies. And so for those that are listening, master missions have changed within the last year. And it used to be that dailies didn't stack. And Varici was one of the old masters, and he was in charge of all the crafting recipes that were for linking, for socket colors. And you would have to log in every day, like a lot of other games. You would have to log in every day to do every master's daily. And that was the one league where I was just tired of it. I didn't care. I used to do dailies religiously. My wife would make fun of me every morning. She'd be like, "You done your dailies yet?" And I haven't even had my coffee for the morning type.
But just add to that too, that Varici had some of the most annoying master missions.
Oh my goodness. Well, a lot of them did. Katarina. Yep. Anyway, yes, Varici had some brutal ones. Some that when you'd log in and you saw what your mission was, you just log right back out. You're like, okay, well, screw that. I can't believe I logged in for that. So anyway, this is the one league I decided, whatever league it was, and I didn't level up Varici. This was the one league I'm like, oh man, this is an epic item. I finally got a chest piece that I'm like, wow, I wish I could 6 socket this. So I went out and I bought tons of fusings. I spent all my Exiles. I spent everything. This chest piece was worth it. I spent 3,200 fusings trying to 6 link this chest. And it never happened. 3,200 right clicks. My fingers were so sore. And it was because I didn't unlock the Varici craft. It's the same quantity now of 1,500 fusings to automatically 6 link.
Yeah, it would have taken so long though to get back in the day. Like to get that craft. Yeah,
but still, I could have, and I didn't. I could have done it twice, and I didn't. 3,200 fusings, and I didn't get it.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Solo Self-Found. I got a 6 link drop the other day. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm really happy for you.
Either.
Super happy about that.
No, it was really awesome.
On the note of crafting, it came up today where I was talking about the movement speed crafts and your opinion on movement speed on boots. So the one benefit with Solo Self-Found for me actually has been the fact that I don't have to worry about searching for items to buy and, min-maxing and stuff, and really just trying to make the most out of what I can find and what I can craft. And so I've been pretty lucky to get a lot of really good life and resist roll boots, which is great. It's just that they're not rolling with movement speed. So the craft that I have for movement speed caps at 24, right? So I can craft up to 24% movement speed. The alternative is the Unveiling mods craft, which allows me to craft movement speed. At my current rate, it's a maximum of 14%. I think it goes up to 17% as a max, somewhere around there, 17 or 19%. I can't remember exactly, but it adds the bonus of 8 to 12% in my case, onslaught for 4 seconds on kill. And
yeah, a percentage chance, like 11. Oh, you already
it was
said that.
8 to 12%
right,
chance on kill to get onslaught. And I think I actually like that one better. I think I prefer.
Well, onslaught adds that nice. It is 20% as well. Onslaught, isn't it? Movement speed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know how they all stack together, but I've always really liked on kill anything.
Yeah.
It to me has always been relatively beneficial. And if the max that I can craft is 24, which I believe it is, I don't actually know. There may be one more step higher on the craft for that. But if the difference is 7%, but I gain this up to 12% bonus for onslaught on kill, I don't see a negative to it because movement speed isn't really going to benefit me once I get to a boss fight. 24 versus 17% is not going to have that big of an impact when I'm fighting a boss.
No, movement speed in general, yes, but that 7%.
Right. And
or 8%, whatever.
The onslaught, I get that benefit obviously from mapping. Although I don't remember if we talked about it before, but I've noticed with a lot of bosses, they've changed this league to add way more mobs into the boss fights. Like in Belfry, there's now mobs that come up from the ground when you're fighting Kitava, which is amazing. It makes it so much easier to fight that. You know, you get some flask recharge, you can get some leech, whatever.
Yeah, well, you're a flasker, yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean,
I guess everybody but me is, but yeah.
Yeah. Most people use 5 different types of flasks. You have the spots for it. Anyway, do you have so if you were crafting, would you rather straight up movement speed or something with a bonus?
Always with the bonus for me. For me, well, I guess I have the concussion symptoms. So for me, too much movement speed, I get nauseous, right? And another thing that really, unfortunately, sets me off is unexpected movement speed changes. So if I'm going at a decent pace and then I don't see it, maybe it's a dark level, and then all of a sudden I'm over tar and my character just really slows down and then I speed up. So my favorite one is actually very similar to yours, but it's the one that involves can't be chilled. So it's movement speed and it's the same percentages, right? Up to 15%, I think it is for level 2. Level 3, I think, goes up to 19%. So let's say 18% movement speed, and then I can't be chilled. Right. I just love that. I absolutely love it. I do use so for my flask situation, console has a really cool feature where it's called smart flask system where, so I'm on Xbox, and LB and RB are your flask buttons. And you can also use your D-pad if you were going to use the 5 flask situation, but I'm not like that. So I have 4 life flasks and 1 escape flask. And so LB, when I have smart flask turned on, it uses all flasks of a similar type. So if my first life flask is empty, I can still hit LB even though that flask is actually empty, and it'll just use the next life flask, which is really cool. So I can use my escape. RB would be my escape flask. And so normally that's a quartz flask, so I can phase through enemies and then it'll get rid of chill and freeze. Right? So then I can just unlock any strong box, doesn't matter what it's going to be, hit RB and I move out of the way. So it's nice. And I find that it's a good complement, even though I have chill on my escape flask and chill on my movement speed boots. I think it's a nice one because of the freeze as well. That's my preference anyway. I prefer slower movement speed with a survivability burst.
I've always been so focused on that 30% anytime I've in the past bought boots. And now that I'm playing a little bit differently and getting to see more of the stuff that you can and are somewhat forced to do when you're into that solo self-found mode, it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, but you're big into those on-kill mechanics, like you said. And for me, I'm actually the complete opposite. I don't like any on-kill mechanics because in co-op, it sucks.
Sure.
Right? Like for when you and I play together, you have extremely strong builds and your movement speed is a lot faster than mine. So my goal is to basically protect myself as I try and keep up.
Right.
And so I'm not going to get on kill mechanics. As a minion fan, I'm not getting on kill mechanics. So I like the ones that are consistent. So when I'm making builds, I have in my guides that jewels are fantastic, but because of my memory and trying to remember which jewel is in with which build, I only have one jewel slot per build. I know they're extremely strong, and I know that I should have 4, 5, 6, or 7, but I just can't remember, and I can't. It's just overwhelming for me. I get so tired when I'm trying to compare 5 jewels with one build, and I'm like, oh shoot, maybe that was with this other build. So I have one jewel per build, and I normally, because I don't normally play with uniques, I wasn't quite aware of how some of these unique jewels just aesthetically looked. Like, I'm aware of them, I look at them, I see them in the patch notes, I see all the hype about certain ones on Reddit. But I saw some of these unique jewels. Thread of Hope would be an example where they have really cool aesthetic borders. Like, they're very aesthetically pleasing. They have these, some of them pulse nicely, some of them have these nice green thick borders, some of them are blue, and they have like these designs going through them. I thought it was really cool.
You're talking about just how they look.
Yeah, just that's it. That's it. Cool. Just look on the passive tree. I thought they looked really cool. And just because I'm not into uniques, I actually just discovered the visual look of them. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Thread of Hope is actually a very weird jewel, just in the fact that it can roll 4 different sizes. It's not a guaranteed size.
Yeah.
Is bizarre.
A huge size, right? One that's very not typically large, available to normal rare jewels.
Right, which is cool because you're essentially getting the whole intuitive leap idea, right? Where you can just allocate it. And now you're getting a hit to your elemental resistances, but I feel like that's probably worth it, especially in a very large situation. I can think of some places where that would be incredibly strong to be picking up just a crap load of damage in life from that. That being said, I'm in SSF, so I'll never see it. I assume it's worth a fortune. It's only from the Awakener, right? So
that's one thing that I wish I could implement more, but I can't, just for memory's sake. Jewels.
Yeah, I'd love to see you put Thread of Hope as one of your required.
Yeah, because that'll meet my guide requirements.
Don't have to do anything except you have to beat the very final boss and get this one unique to drop.
Yeah.
Good luck.
But it's a league starter. Yeah. So, but under that kind of for monster parts and killing bosses, I was talking with this about you probably at Pita Pit. And so it's interesting with I'm talking monster parts here, and the parts that drop, they have their mods that show, right? And there's normal, there's rare, there's magic, and then there's rare. And I've been noticing that some of the monster parts have implicits, like it drops a rare weapon, but then sometimes the normal mod, right? So just part of the random 6 or 4 things that happen will be a duplicate. It'll say drops a rare weapon.
Sure.
Was that the example I just used? Yeah. So the implicit and then one of the mods underneath it are the same. And on the exact same monster part, there's 2 of the exact same thing.
Hold on. You're saying that you've seen it in the implicit, which is above the line, drops a rare weapon, as well as written below the line? Because I've never seen that.
Yes, I have. And so, I mean, you explained it to me when we were at Pita Pit, but if you could explain it for others, what's the value of having an implicit if it's already a possibility of rolling on the normal set of mods as well?
Okay, so I'm going to have to go on my understanding, which is I've never seen what you just described. I have seen all of the potential things that can drop, unique items, currency, all that kind of stuff is written above the line, which is the implicit to that particular monster part. Everything written below the line is like a map modifier. It's the something that is going to affect the fight that you're about to do. The only thing I know of that can be below that line that would affect it is if it rolls the wealthy, which I've also never seen. I would love to, but it could roll the wealthy modifier, just like a blue or a yellow mob can roll that modifier. Everything below the line is something that affects what you're about to fight. Everything above the line is only affecting what could drop or what will drop from.
So it's basically like a bonus coin. The implicit is basically just a bonus. It doesn't actually make the boss more difficult.
Correct. It just affects what's going to drop when you kill that boss. Everything below the line is going to affect what things that boss is going to be affected by. What skills does it have? What damage does it do?
Okay.
And so, yeah, again, the only thing that I've ever seen, and I've only seen it in Reddit, it's made it kind of weird, that you bring that up. Normally what I would do is I would pick most of the stuff to the far left, unless there was something specific. If I wanted maps to drop, obviously I was going that route. Currency, I'm kind of wanting to do some oils just because I'm playing around with trying to get one of the skills set up. But now that I realize that something can actually roll wealthy as a monster modifier, I've had to pay way more attention to the monster parts, because a finished metamorph monster with one wealthy monster modifier, which again is below the line, is worth way more than all 5 in additional currency above the line. That wealthy modifier has a huge impact on what's going to drop. And so I've had to actually start paying attention now to even the white and the blue monster parts, because there is that chance that wealthy's going to roll as a monster modifier and just crap stuff all over your screen, which has made fighting some of those guys a little difficult, because I can't see the screen. Like once I kill a metamorph boss, I think it's the first league that I can think of in a long time where I actually have to hit Z or Z when I kill it, because I can't see. There's more mobs still on the, fighting and whatever. I can't see them.
Sounds like you need me to make you a filter.
No, I'm good. I'm pretty good.
No, I'm pretty sure you need me to. I'll get right on it. Don't you worry about it.
Just let me know when that's finished. Actually, speaking of filter, now that you bring that up, I noticed, let's see, you are in 8th.
Oh, get at it.
8th and 10th. 8th and 10th.
All right.
Yep. Neversink is still, I mean, you're about 4.
Shuddering in his boots.
Maybe 3 times under him for your 8th place. Yep. 8th and 10th. You're still taking up 2 of the top 20 slots.
Impressive.
So that is impressive.
Well, thank you very much for...
Especially for a guy not playing the league.
I've been thinking about making that filter a little bit more global and not just for my guides, but we'll see.
It's just because you've got too much time now that you're not playing the actual league. So we talked, I think it was last episode, we had a really, maybe it was last one. We were chatting about the Atlas and sort of how we understood it and how we thought it worked. And I think we kind of went a little bit more into depth. So I want to talk just a little bit about the Atlas, what your thoughts are on it right now. You do get to still play Atlas in standard, right?
Yeah, it's part of the core game, so it got implemented right away.
I'm sure you'll have some stuff to put into this, but one of the things that is just right off the top, I'm actually finding it way more confusing than I originally thought. And I think the only reason I'm finding it confusing is because I'm trying to understand where I should be placing watchstones, when I should be adding 2, 3, or 4 to an area. And I understand the whole idea of unlocking maps when you put a watchstone in. All of a sudden a new map will show up. I love it. I think that's really cool. But it's making it really hard to figure out, what map should I be doing? Where should I be placing this watchstone in order to further my Atlas expansion? And, it's actually, I feel like it's a bit of, not much of a roadblock, but enough of a roadblock where I'm sitting there going, well, frick. I feel like I'm just throwing my watchstones haphazardly and just being like, those look cool. I'll put 2 there. I
think the wording of the quests could be a little bit more helpful. Like there's a difference between them, and when you know what they mean, it makes sense, but it doesn't, it's not as, there's no reason for them to be vague. You know what I mean? I think one of the wording was explore this region, name whatever region you want, of the Atlas, to discover this boss. And what they mean is do maps you haven't done yet to unlock the next, to get influence in the area again and spawn the next boss. And then, of course, it'll be different wording once you've unlocked all the maps and you're still looking for more watchstones. But I think quest wording could be a lot better for sure. I find, for me, one of the biggest issues, and I like that there's maps that are hidden, but Xana missions and Xana purchases, they really bring to light that there's a lot you can't see. And if you don't have a map stash tab, there is an insane, even with the map stash tab, there's so much screen hopping
Mm-hmm.
back and forth, that it does complicate the issue when you're trying to decide, okay, do I want to focus on this region? All right. I'm going to focus on this bottom left corner region because I'm going to try and get this boss to spawn. Okay, I have these 3 unfinished maps. And now remember, for those of you that are PC only, that console for both Xbox and PlayStation 4, they interact very differently with the Atlas and then with your map stash tab. And it's just back and forth and back and forth. And okay, do I have this map? Is it in this region or is it in this region?
Mm-hmm.
I find it tedious to be thorough. So what I've done is I've kind of gone a little bit more apathetic. The map stash, or the watchstone storage that's on the side of the Atlas, what I'll do when I have them all available to me, I'll throw them all in their storage, and I'll just look to see which, I always want to call them neighborhoods, but regions, which region I have the least amount of watchstones in. Then I'll focus on that one, and I'll look, okay, so for the very next watchstone, what do I need? Okay, I need 1 yellow. Okay, so then I'll put in a yellow one in there, and then I'll try and find the maps I do. But it's hard because when you're looking at your Atlas, you have no idea if you have the maps you need or not.
Yeah, it's a little weird just because in the past, you've always known sort of what maps you're working towards to work your way into the center of the Atlas, because you could see, you know, everything within a certain range of your last completed map. Whereas now it doesn't matter if you've completed something in that range. If the watchstone's not there, you don't see it. And I like the fact that once you complete it, you know, if I complete a tier 2 and I put watchstones in there, whether it's becoming a tier 6 or a tier 12, I love that it's still finished, which means that if I happen to be doing a tier 6 or 7 or 11 or 13 on a completely separate part of the Atlas, I love that there's that chance. As long, I assume, I don't actually know if I finish a tier, I'll just use 6 for example, because it's going to be a yellow map.
Okay.
I finish a tier 6 in the bottom left, and the only reason that showed up is because I had a watchstone in that bottom left section, right?
Okay.
Let's say that. Now in my top right section or neighborhood, which I actually like way better than
Okay.
in my
We'll go
top right
neighborhood,
neighborhood,
forget the real thing.
Yep. If I take out that watchstone that's in the bottom left, so now I can't see that yellow map that I completed. It's gone back down to, let's say, a white map or something, where it's disappeared completely.
Yeah.
If I complete a tier, let's say 6 or 7 map on a different part of the Atlas, can that map still drop that no longer is visible on my Atlas because the watchstone's out?
I think so. I don't think there's different rules for it.
Okay. So in general, straight across, once you've completed it, that's it, whether it's showing on the Atlas or not.
No, I'm not answering for sure. I've had those types of maps drop. I was looking at that while I was leveling, and those types of maps did drop for me. But I might not have been paying attention, that I might have been in a Xana section or not, but I'm pretty sure that it was dropping like normal for me. Whether they're visible or not on the map doesn't change their droppability as far as I know. From what I experienced.
I like that.
Droppability.
Their droppability.
It's almost as nice as neighborhood.
So on the topic of maps, what we were having a brief conversation, but what is the method that you use to reroll maps? I'm curious. If you get a map that rolls, I don't know, reflect elemental, and you don't have anything that's going to protect you from that, what's your go-to for rerolling maps?
For me, it's completely dependent on how much I have of what. There's some times where I will just use chaos to reroll chaos. Typically when I'm in league, I always just sell for chaos. I find alks very easy to get, so I reroll my maps in league with chaos because that's all I get for currency from my sells. And I just keep going until... Now, I'm the type of person where I will roll and play any map as long as my character can do it.
Sure.
Right? So I'm the type of annoying player, if you ever watch my broadcast, where I will do a temporal chains map because it didn't roll something like no life regen for a righteous fire character. But typically, when I play in standard, what I'll do is I'll use a scouring to make the map white, for those of you who are quite new to the game. And then I'll just alk it again, because I'll typically, with all the vendoring that I do on standard on console, I have way more alks than I do than I do chaos. What do you do? Like, what do you look for? What do you do?
I'm relatively the same way. I'll play almost everything. I think there's a term that a lot of people have used, which is just alch and go, where I'll try and just alch it and run it.
I love that term, alch and go. I don't know why I've never heard of that. I love it.
There's some things, obviously, depending on the build, that limit me. In this particular league, it's nice because that only thing is can't leech. Otherwise, I think I can pretty much run everything. But for me, it's almost always scour and alch. Oh, and mainly because even in a trade league, it's cheaper to scour and alch than it is to chaos. So I tend to have
if you were to buy currency, you mean?
Correct, which I don't typically, but I also almost always have far more chaos than I have of scouring and alchs. But I can understand. I'm not totally sure. I feel like in solo self-found, I might actually use the chaos for maps because they don't really have a use. I would never craft an item with a chaos. It's just way too random. Your chances of getting anything good is very, very low. So I can't see a whole lot of use besides crafting, through the actual bench that's going to require it. And then, some of the Xana, I think there's a challenge to do 30 maps with the 3 chaos charge Xana one or whatever. So, for that, but I think in a solo self-found, I might do it a little differently than I normally would.
Gotcha. And just for the super new folks that would be listening, it might be weird to them to hear that you're not using a chaos to re-roll up to 6 modifiers or more per item until you get what you want. So just quickly, because we could go into hours for crafting, how do you like to do your crafting without the chaos? And we could have a whole crafting episode later, but
yeah, it really is. There's so much that could go into that. Typically, it depends on where I'm at in the league. Quite often as I'm leveling, I'll alch an item if it's something that is going to give me a big bump, because no matter what, if I alch this weapon at level 30, I'm going to see a huge increase in my damage, and it's going to make me level faster. When I get into endgame, I have never been lucky enough to just have the time and the currency and the understanding to go, all right, I'm going to build myself like a really good multi-modded item. And it's changed now too, so you can't really do multi-modding the same way you could before, where you're limited now to how many you can be adding. So I haven't looked enough into it, but in the past it would have been alterations till I get 2 mods that I need, regaling, hopefully getting something, and then you're looking at the multi-modding and whether you're trying to annul something maybe so that you can actually drop one off so you can get an extra multi-mod on it to it's very rare for me to be in that spot in a league. I would love to, the idea, and that I guess is a little more of the solo self-found style, but I haven't had the time to do it. I haven't had the need. I'm not in a position of having just like unlimited currency to start crafting with. So we talked about the maps, just going back to sort of how we were rolling maps and stuff, not gear, but maps. But we talked a little bit about Haunted Mansion. And
that was awesome.
So I just did it like 2 days ago for the first time this league. Okay. It probably took me, oh God, I want to say it was like 25 minutes to go through that damn map, because every painting I was stopping at to look at. And so just for fun, I was taking screenshots of it.
Can you explain quick what it is in case somebody didn't listen to our episode about the Haunted Mansion?
Right. Go back and listen to every episode if you didn't, but if not, when you approach paintings within the Haunted Mansion, and this could be in other areas of the game too, we're not totally sure, but as you approach paintings in the Haunted Mansion, the image on a lot of the paintings will actually shift based on your proximity to the painting. So there's some that don't, but quite a few of them will actually change what is happening in that picture. And it's pretty cool. And I only had a chance of seeing 3. I know there's more than the 3 that I saw, and I took screenshots of them. But the one thing I was going to say is that I put it onto Reddit just for fun, because I thought it was cool. I had never noticed it before. I know you had told me about it for quite a while since you had heard about it. But the one thing that impressed me is just how many other people are in the same boat I was that just didn't know that it was a thing. Like all of the responses that came from it were like, wow, it's really cool. It's such a fun, small thing that they did. And anyway, so I was going to give you some props for that because it was cool.
Well, good for you. You got a huge. How many people have you got upvoted like crazy for that one? That was nuts.
Well, that's what I mean when I say that. Obviously, there's a lot of people that didn't know about it.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool that I love that there's still little things like that that people are figuring out that they're not aware of, that they've played for such a long time. So and myself in that boat as well.
I discovered it from ExileCon because I was at home and I heard the artists interview, and they were saying they just did it on their own. They just thought that was a neat feature to do, and they did it completely on their own. And I thought that was really cool.
So they didn't
really cool.
They didn't actually it wasn't like a planned thing.
No, it just came into their minds one day that they were going to do it for that map, and they did. And I thought that was really neat that they did, and it wasn't really something that needed to get passed over.
That's really
and it's
cool.
just been in the game ever since. And they even made their own story with it, so you can actually see the progress if you go a certain direction. And I mean, maps are randomly generated, so you never know, but you can actually see the progress of a story happening depending on if the map rolls right.
So just real quick, because I didn't actually see that particular part, did they bring it up or was it brought up to them?
They brought it up. No, it was just one of those questions like, what's a neat thing?
See, I wish they would not tell people and people would just figure it out. Like one of my favorite parts or not favorite parts, it was just one thing that really stood out and I thought was hilarious at ExileCon was when they had the D2 guys up there. And one of the questions that came from the crowd was, are there any Easter eggs still in the game? And they kind of laughed and they said, well, no one's figured out what, I can't remember what it was, like the talking mirror or the something mirror was used for. And they just left it at that. Like there's still an Easter egg that people haven't figured out. So anyway, it would have been cool if they did.
Cool.
So we're going to talk about a build or skill that you've always wanted to do, but never did. So hopefully you've had some time to think about this. So what's a build or skill?
I have 3 things in here. Three things.
3 different skills or builds or what?
Well, for different reasonings.
Okay.
But I think my favorite build on Earth, if I didn't have concussion symptoms and stuff, I would do Righteous Fire with cast on damage taken level 1 and Lightning Warp.
Okay.
And I'd start walking to enemies, and then I just let the mouse go or the controller go, and I would just watch my character go boom, boom, bounce, 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 bounce. I'd have elemental equilibrium on with it. I didn't double check them in the last 3.8 or 3.9, but they always had the same AoE. So your AoE increases and decreases would always influence the same. Oh, it'd be fantastic. Just go. It'd be super tanky. Everything else is casting damage taken. All you do is move until they start moving you again. And that's great. It'd be fantastic. Yeah. I think you would love that build, don't you?
I feel like looting would be very difficult.
Yeah, you can't loot mid-combat. How about you? What would be yours?
So I can't think of a whole lot of like builds that kind of idea, but there is one item every time it drops, every time I hear about it, every time I read it, every time I see it, I go, man, I feel like there's got to be some way I could do something around that. Never really looked into it. I've never actually seen it, but it's the gloves. Empire's Grasp is what they're called. And so all the gems socketed into them are supported by the level 10 knockback, which I'm not sure that I would care to use the gloves for that particular part. But the part that I love about it is that the knockback direction is reversed.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've always been curious, like now the only way to me that it would be really, I don't know. I just love the idea of creating a vacuum of like where somehow when you've hit them, they are sucked into you. I've never spent enough time to actually figure out if there's any way to make it work. I feel like probably not. I'd probably end up being in the same boat you are in this league, and I would be dumping it after a little bit. But for some reason, those gloves, they always just, I don't know why, they always just stick out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's a neat idea.
Yep. And so that was your one, hey? Bouncing all over the place.
That was the one that if I could, that I'd never really done. I have a feeling I tried it once before, but
you could just close your
when
eyes.
I didn't even know how to build. But a couple other things that I would actually really like to do for those that are listening that have played or do play my slow-mo zombies build. If I didn't have any concussion symptoms, I would have Consecrated Path with that for sure. And then Meat Shield with my zombies. And I would just be going everywhere with Consecrated Path over and over and over. I think that would be a ton of fun.
I've played Consecrated Path a couple leagues and I loved it. It was a lot of fun. It was like
you forgot to put zombies with it though.
Yeah. Well, zombies are useless now. So
No, they're not bad. I was playing with the slow-mo build not that long ago. A couple days ago. It was still really good. And on a side note, everything would be different for me if Dominating Blow was a support skill. That's the one where when you tag an enemy, if that enemy dies while the tag is on them, then it spawns a sentinel that's a copy of the enemy.
Right.
If that was a support skill, every single build that I have would be with Dominating Blow.
I feel like that would be a little broken as a support.
I think it would be awesome.
What would happen if you killed is there a max to Dominating Blow to how many things can be spawned?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 1 rare, 2 or 3 magic, and I think 9 normals.
But as a support, if you were killing things really fast, would they be even useful?
Well, it would be. I guess my point is I would love to be able to get into action quickly, but with the skill that I don't have to have multiple attack skills for.
I see.
You know what I mean? I'd like to have like a consecrated path where I leap right into them. I have an AoE and I've tagged everybody right away.
Yep.
Right now you have to have like it's one little dinky hit, right? And you're really dependent on attack speed with it. And you're probably doing splash just so you can hit a few enemies. But then that, of course, are the types of gems that also support your sentinel. So anyway, I didn't mean to get into it, but it was just, if it was a support gem, everything would be different.
You'd be all over it.
You betcha.
Sweet. So I think we're pretty much wrapping up this episode. Now, this is episode 8. And in episode 6, during our best of 2019 recap, we talked about doing a giveaway. And we had a ton of people retweet us and post on Twitter or Reddit. So we have a giveaway to do.
And thank you very much for everyone and your involvement and your feedback. It was all really cool. Really cool to see.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a lot of chats with different people. And so this, again, was for one of the $60 supporter packages. You pick which one you want, whichever console or PC that you want it on, and we'll get it sorted out with support. So I got the little random name picker up here with everybody that's in it. I'm going to hit this button, and we will see the winner is International Fish.
Congratulations.
Fish. Yeah, so we'll get a hold of him through whatever method that he did his or her messaging, and get International Fish. The prize.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
awesome stuff. Free support pack.
Yeah, so this is the end of episode 8 of Forever Exiled, a Path of Exile podcast. Thanks a lot for joining us. I am Justin, aka Tag.
And I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days. You're the best. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget to check out the show notes below for more information about today's episode. You can find us online at www.foreverexiled.com or on the Twitterverse at foreverexiled82.